Hey girl, hey. Yeah. Woo, woo. Hey girl, hey. Ooh, let's go. Hey girl, hey. Hey girl, hey. Yeah. Woo, woo. Hey girl, hey. Ooh, let's go.
Hey girl, hey.
Podcast name Hey Girl Hey, because it's the Hey Girl Hey,
Hey girl,
podcast. But
love
I
that.
definitely want to honor your time, and I'm so grateful that you are talking with me today. But we can go ahead and get started. So I've heard a little bit of your upbringing, but I think it's really cool that you're like a military baby. So can you tell a little bit about your upbringing, just an intro into your upbringing, and then from the point of upbringing and then to marriage, I guess, intro to that.
Okay, sure. So, like you said, I grew up military. I am the oldest of three girls. So it's me, and then I have two younger sisters. And I was born in Ohio, but I've never actually lived there for a period of time that I can recall.
Okay.
So we moved from Ohio actually to California, and then we moved to Germany, Hawaii, Washington State, and that's where I met Kevin. We met in our junior year of high school, and we started dating that spring, and we've been together ever since. And then about 6 years ago, we moved to back to California. So we're both churchy. Like I grew up super, super churchy. My mom was saved. My dad got saved a little bit later in life. So yeah, I mean, I had a pretty regular childhood outside of the military life, which is kind of common, but also not common at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, we moved around quite a bit. It made it easy for me to make friends, but also, I don't know, I actually kind of feel like it also made me really socially awkward. Like I have my close-knit friends, and then I'm not no new friends, but also I'm kind of team no new friends.
Okay.
In a very weird kind of way.
Yeah. That is so interesting. Wow. And then Kevin had that same upbringing, so he moved around a lot as well. And then you both just landed in Washington.
Yeah. So we had, he grew up military. He was actually raised by his stepfather, who is in the military. He just retired, in November. And so we both met. We literally lived a block away from each other, and we had a class together in school. And yeah, so we have very, very similar backgrounds. He grew up just as churchy. Actually, he grew up more churchy than I did. So my parents weren't saved, didn't really get saved until after my dad joined the military and we moved to Germany. So by this time, they were probably in their late 20s, I would say, early 30s. Probably not even. Yeah, probably their late 20s. And so I attended a military church, which is a lot different than attending a civilian church.
Okay.
So the military church, or it's the chapel, so to speak, on a military base is it services the entire base.
Yeah.
So it's it has the Catholic, and then the Black church, and then everybody goes to that one church. So we weren't very I didn't identify as a denomination. I was kind of non-denomination by default, non-denomination before it was actually a thing, because you just went to the chapel.
Yeah.
And Kevin grew up very PAW, and I actually didn't learn anything about denominations until I moved to Washington State, and we went to a church that wasn't on post.
Okay.
And that's when I kind of learned about Kojic and PAW and, being Baptist and all of these different denominations. It was all very, very new to me.
Yeah, that's a whole world. I'm a PAW
It really
baby
is.
too, so I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you grew up military?
No, I grew up PAW.
Oh, PAW. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you said you grew up military. Yeah. So when Kevin and when I was in Washington State, the church that I attended was Kojic. Mm-hmm. And Kevin thought I wasn't saved.
Oh, yeah.
I went to, and Kojic wasn't, you can't wear pants in
Right.
Kojic when you go to church. But because I grew up military, going on military church, people are getting off work and going to church. People are coming from PT, which is physical training, basically, where you're like exercising and stuff,
Yeah.
and would go to church. So I'm used to seeing people in BDUs, which is like your military uniform, women in like their suits, or whatever. Like we came to church like literally come as you are.
Right.
And so when I was Kojic, I was like, oh, well, this is new. And so I would come from like track practice, and then I would go to Bible study, and I would just have on like my tracksuit. And Kevin was like, who am I dating? This girl's finna go to hell.
Yeah, PAW did not go for that. So I know all about it. That's
exactly.
Crazy.
So yeah, it was new for me. Definitely new.
Wow. Well, that's so crazy. Okay, so I love how you talk about showing up for yourself and how you came to that realization. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm assuming that realization kind of led you into being like a motivational speaker for women and creating content for women. So can you talk a little bit about that and how you got to that point?
Sure. So I would actually even like kind of back up, because I would actually say that it started with my book and falling into, it's interesting to even hear you say a motivational speaker, because I don't know that I would consider myself a motivational speaker. But I do, what really happened was this. I had a lot of trouble growing up with self-esteem. I struggled with self-esteem, and I struggled with finding my sex pot, so to speak, after I got married. Mm-hmm. And because I struggled through those things, when I was in my late 20s, I decided to go on like these campaigns, because I would find myself like trying to reach out for help in these different areas, and nobody was talking about it, and I wasn't finding like the help. Like no one was being the resource that I needed them to be to get the help that I needed. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of worked through, in my own mind, some things that I did. I called them campaigns at the time, and help like kind of pull me out of my low self-esteem and, stirring up my sex pot and all of those things. And then years later, I decided I wanted to write about it. I don't know. I just wanted to like document what I did. Yeah. And from there, so many women identified with it. Yeah. And it was it's still, to be honest, it's overwhelming. But I also see that I was never the only one. No one was talking about it. Right. And so at this point, going back to your original question, being a motivational speaker, I don't know that I am, but where I am is sharing my truth that a lot of women relate to. Yeah, for sure. And I don't always, like, even when you were just talking about show up for yourself, I was talking to myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like literally at that time, Kevin and I were having a discussion about me quitting my job. And I was terrified, because I'm always like the stable person in our relationship. Mm-hmm. And, Kev goes off and dreams and does the entrepreneur thing. And if all else fails, we have a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks. Yeah. We have healthcare, we have dental. Like I'm going to be like the safety net in case all else fails. And he was like, basically, in my words, he didn't say this, but what I heard him say was, you've shown up for me for all of these years. You've gone to work, you've held us down. There was a period of time where Kev was actually fired from his job. It didn't work. And I was like, go pursue comedy, go pursue your dream. I literally told him, I want you to be happy. Yeah. And if being happy means pursuing comedy and not going to work during this time, I'm willing to make the sacrifices that we need to make financially for you to go do that. And so what I heard him say was, you've done all of these things for me. Now I'm at a point in my career where I can afford, or we can afford, for you to come off your job and do what you want to do. Wow. It's time for you to show up for yourself. It's time for you to show up for yourself the way that you showed up for me. Yeah. Of course, not what he said, but kind of like after I started thinking about it, that's what I heard. And so that video was really my own encouragement to show up for myself. Yeah. It was literally me talking to myself saying, it's okay for you to almost be selfish. I think as women, a lot of times we struggle with that because we feel like we want to nurture and care for everyone in our family. And so we end up putting ourselves on the back burner. And I was telling myself at that time, it's okay to show up for yourself.
Yeah.
The same way that you would give your last to your kids or your husband or your mom or your sister, sometimes your job, it's okay to reserve something for yourself. And so, that was really, and I felt it heavy in that moment. Like, and that's another thing that happens to me. So I've been toying with this new idea. I'll probably do a video on it at some point. But usually what happens to me is that I'm literally like, this is how I'm feeling. Like, this is what's going on in my life. And this is how I'm like analyzing and synthesizing that information. And I usually can come up with like a show up for yourself. And then the next one that I'm thinking about is identity theft. And like, once I get everything out, I feel it so heavy that I have to get it out. Like, even when I wrote my book, I was like, I have to get this out of me. Yeah. And once I do, it almost lifts and I can like move on, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah.
See, you are a motivational speaker.
Thank you. I literally have never thought of myself like that. I actually never put that together.
No, because like I feel like I'm in that space now because I've always like supported my husband. He's a musician and a producer, and this is since I've started my podcast, this is my first time feeling like I have this thing that is mine. And he kind of had that same attitude, like it's time for you to do your thing, because we put our stuff on the back burner so easily. So I love that you say that and you push that. I just love it. I love it. So the transition from 9 to 5 and entrepreneurship, what was that transition like? And I know Kevin supported it, but it sounds like, how did that go?
Well, we're still in the thick of it.
Okay.
It is definitely a transition. So it's a lot, actually. It's a couple things. I'm trying to organize my thoughts as I'm speaking. So number one, I have always been a great employee. I've always excelled at every job I've ever had. I can call my bosses today and they would give me a recommendation, from when I worked at KFC as a teenager to the last job that just ended. The company actually closed down and moved to Ohio. But I literally can call my direct manager on up to the president of the company and offer me a review. I've always been a stellar employee. Yeah. So because of that, I realize now that a lot of my identity was wrapped up in my job. A lot of my value was wrapped up in being a good employee. Like, if I don't do anything else, I know how to clock in. Yeah. I know how to be on time. I know how to do a good job. I know how to earn a paycheck. Right. Like, if I don't do nothing else, girl, what I know I can do is find a job, keep a job, and climb the corporate ladder. Yeah. She got that unlocked. And so walking away from that and learning to find new value has been difficult for me. Okay. Because the day in the life of an entrepreneur is what you make of it. There's no like job description, which I realize it helps me. It guides like my day to day. It guides my like, these are the things I need to accomplish in a day. And if I do these things well, I can put a check mark by there. And so when I clock out, I know I've done a great job. Yeah. And not having that has been, it's been a transition for me. Like, honestly, it's been very difficult. And then the flip side of that is because I've been not living, but, well, kind of, I would probably say living might be the best word. Kevin has always done entrepreneur. Melissa has always done work. And now I am trying to find my place in this entrepreneur life. Has been an added layer on top of that. So finding my value is directly really tied to what is my place here? What am I to be doing? Kevin has been doing this for so long, really almost autonomously, that I didn't really have a place. So trying to find that has been it's a transition. It's definitely been a transition. It's been a transition for me. It's been a transition for us. And it's been a transition for him, if that makes sense. Like literally, and they're different things. Like each one of those is very different. So yeah, I'm still working through it, transitioning. It's been interesting. Some days I feel like, ooh, I did good today. But I am very much like a checklist person. Like honestly, in front of me, what was just holding up my the phone in front of me is literally my to-do list.
That is so me too.
Yeah, like I need to be able, and like stuff is crossed off because I need to be able to tell myself I've done a good job. I need to be able to say that today was a success because I've done these things. Otherwise, it's like all I did was put on sweats today and watch TV. And my dream has never been that. No shade or disrespect to anyone who's ever like, they've always just wanted to be like a stay-at-home mom. But that was it. It's just that it was never my dream. My dream was always to, I literally envisioned myself when I was a kid. I wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to rock a tailored pencil skirt suit, some bomb heels. At the time, I thought a briefcase was like the coolest, most professional thing ever. And I would be walking down the street with my briefcase, like taking over the world. And so like being at home, even today, I like put on jeans because I was like, I've been wearing sweats for like 3 weeks. I'm done. And I'm very much like, I don't even like wearing sweats, but it's like, all I'm doing is getting up and coming to the office to like pack shirts or something.
And it's just comfortable.
So it's like, I want to be comfortable, but literally today I was like, I'm putting jeans on because I just feel like I need to have my life together.
I hear you. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting. Well, I think you're doing it really well. From the outside looking in, you guys are killing it. So I feel like KevOnStage kind of, the earliest I remember of KevOnStage is when they had the video when the one was like, is that my note in the bathroom? Like that's the earliest I remember. And then all of a sudden,
that black church girl stage.
Yes. And then all of a sudden it just blew up. But I'm sure you know the whole behind the scenes of that and what that was like. So can you talk a little bit about like the rise of KevOnStage and how that's played out with the family dynamic, the marriage dynamic, and all those things? Yeah,
of course. So Kevin actually started with his brother, Jason, and Anthony as the playmakers. And they used to do plays. So, and that's actually where Playmaker came from. It was in the very early years when Tyler Perry was doing like literal traveling plays around the country. And the guys wanted to be Tyler Perry. And so it's so funny. I was actually just cleaning out one of my closets like yesterday, actually. Day before. No, it was yesterday. And I actually found one of their old play DVDs.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, and I actually found a script as well. It's amazing kind of what you find when you go through stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like we don't even have the technology to like play this right now. Cause it's like on not a cassette, but kind of like, it's not a VC or it's on, I don't know.
I know what you mean. Those little things. They're like smaller.
It looks like a cassette, but it's not like, I don't know what it is. Anyways, it was like on one of those. So anyway, that's how they started. And what happened was that they were hiring promoters to come out and look at their plays to help like finance it and tour it basically. And somebody came and he was, I'm trying to remember, I actually feel like he was actually like one of Tyler Perry's promoters. And he was like, this is really great. I really love it. You guys are going to need, I don't remember the number, $50,000 or something like that. And the guys are like, oh, well, great. We have 1,000, like we have $5 to put on it. What are we going to do to get the rest? And so that idea was like immediately like, X-Nix. And during that time, YouTube was kind of getting like really popular. And well, actually, this is like fast forward a few years. YouTube was getting really, really popular. And at the time, Stuff Black Girls Say, I think, was the really popular video at the time.
Okay.
And so the guys just decided to, or Stuff Girls Say, I actually think that's what it was, Stuff Girls Say. And that was like just a really popular like tagline on YouTube. And like, it was YouTube at the time. And it was just going viral. Anyone who did Stuff Fill in the Blank Says, it was just really going viral. So they decided to do a Stuff Black Church Girls Say. And it was an immediate viral video.
Yeah.
And it changed, honestly, it changed their whole trajectory, because it went from like trying to do these plays to now we can make these videos really cheap.
Yeah.
And, or, next to nothing. We were using phones. We were using our pastor's church, put them on the internet, and all of these people see them, and we don't have to travel to them.
Yeah.
They are actually traveling to us. So it was like a win-win on both sides. And from there, they started getting booked more. And that transition, Kevin has always been, he's always been like forward thinking. Mm-hmm. So he sees the playmakers, and his goal was just to build an audience that was for like a KevOnStage audience that was like, he didn't want to overtake the playmakers. He just wanted to like build an audience. Yeah. And lo and behold, all of these years later, I mean, the playmakers haven't done a video in years. I mean, that video was kind of at this point, it's like iconic, really.
Right.
Like when you think back on it, and people still sometimes are in my comments like, "Is that your note?"
Yes.
So yeah, it really changed the trajectory, not only of the three of them, but really for Kevin as well, because he started his own YouTube page, and he was doing stand-up comedy at the time. During that time, he got fired, that I mentioned earlier, and he was going out to comedy clubs, like regular non-Christian comedy clubs, doing comedy, and sacrificing family time. And he decided he didn't want to do that. And again, the internet was a way to get your your videos out without traveling to different places, without sacrificing family time. Right. And so that's what he started doing and kept doing. And now we're, 10, 15 years later, here we are.
Wow. And you guys are killing it.
Thank you. I mean, we still definitely feel like we're in the thick of the grind. It's a grind. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a grind. Yeah. I mean, the room that I'm in right now, if you see these racks behind me, it's the merch racks, because like, that's what I did earlier today, was pack merchandise and take it to the post office myself. So it's a grind. Like, it is it's a grind.
Yeah. And I mean, you said that he does a lot of it now. He could do it from home or wherever you guys are. So did that impact you guys as a family, or not as much, just because he was mostly home?
Well, in the beginning, it was, the best, because he's at home. But as he got more and more popular, and really more like specifically, since we moved to California, so really within the last 5 or 6 years, and probably really when he started blowing up on Facebook, he started getting booked more. Mm-hmm. So the year before last, he was gone. Actually, for about 2 years in a row, he was gone just about every single weekend.
Oh, wow.
He was booked for at least one show, if not leaving on Friday and then coming back on Sunday night, having a show on Saturday and a show on Sunday. I would say for about 2 years, he was booked every single weekend. Wow. And from there, he started to do the tour. And so last year we did the comedy tour, and we were gone. Both of us were gone a lot. This year we're doing it again, and he's gone a lot. And it does take its toll. Like, it's taxing on him. It's taxing on us. Mm-hmm. It's taxing on the boys. So it does start to take its toll, which is why, like, we've been in more conversations about how to bring in, the income that doesn't require me to always go out. Yeah. Or at the very least, not to travel as much. Mm-hmm. So that includes merch, where he doesn't have to leave. That includes, my mom's calling me. Hold on. Okay. Actually, can you still see me, or did it go blank?
It just froze. It's not blank.
Okay, it froze. Okay. I'll call her back. I know what she's calling about. I talked to her earlier. anyway, we have done the merch thing, and now we're talking about even the podcast really as a way of like trying to be able to bring in income without having to travel.
Yeah.
And then also with the tour, or I'm sorry, with the Love Hour conference that we're in the very infant stages of planning right now for next year, where we could go out to one location and have people come to us.
Yeah.
So all of those things, I mean, it's all part of I feel like there is a path for entrepreneurs, and it's all a grind, but in the beginning, you are the product. And to be honest, usually you are the product. Majority of the time, you're always going to be the product. But you go from like trying to wear yourself out to how can I make this easier for myself? Yeah. How can I work smarter? How can I spend more time with my family? And I feel like that's where we are in our path of entrepreneurship, is how can we make this less taxing on ourselves? How can we how can we keep a healthy balance in our relationship with the boys? And just even as like, a sole individual, how can I keep my own sanity, so to speak, and balance in my own life?
That is so good. I just love talking to you right now.
Yeah.
Blessing my whole life. I want to touch on one more thing. I don't want to keep you too long, but the Love Hour is one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to it every week. I love when y'all post like more than one in 1 week. I get all excited. Excuse me. But something you talked about that was so good, and I could relate to it, was how you talk about purity and the transition of like being told you can't have sex for all this time and then going into a marriage and how that plays on you. I was not a virgin. I wish I was when I got married, but it was still a certain shame associated with sex that I had to work through. Can you talk about that? Because I just love your perspective on that and how you kind of worked through that and what work you did to kind of get out of that space.
Oh my goodness, so much work. So this is like such a loaded question. We honestly could have did a podcast just on that topic. So for me, I was a virgin on my wedding day. And what happened was that I feel like I was brainwashed. And I always say brainwashed, and I always struggle with saying it. Because I don't mean it in a way that is intentionally bad. Yeah. Like, I don't believe that, like, the church, in quotations, is like, we need to like intentionally brainwash these girls or brainwash these women that sex is bad and all of that. That is not the intent. I believe that the intent is with pure intentions and a clean heart, but the effect is nonetheless detrimental. Yeah. And that is my story. So when I grew up very churchy, and for whatever reason, I took my salvation very seriously as a child, like as a teenager. I wasn't like the annoying, like super saint, but I did take I took my relationship with Christ and I laugh now because I was like, girl, you were like 13. Like, why would you be like that serious? But also it's very much in line with my personality. Like, I'm very much kind of like a no nonsense person. Yeah. But I was like, seriously, like, I didn't listen to secular music, and it wasn't like my parents would necessarily like keep tabs on me, but like I very much limited because I just felt like my relationship with Christ was that important. I would go to sleep to like Fred Hammond, girl.
I love it.
I was doing the most. So anyway, because I took it so seriously, I was like, it was a goal at a young age, like, to be a virgin on my wedding day. Yeah. So I get married, and now I'm in this context in which God says sex is okay, and I am struggling, struggling. And so I would go to like these marriage enrichment classes and these women's study classes at my church, and I'm like, again, reaching out for help, and no one's talking about this. And so part of my one of the campaigns that I did, so I wrote this book again about all the campaigns that I went through, or that I went through to, come up out of the low self-esteem that I had. But one of them was the Get Sexy campaign. And that was because Kevin and I got married at 20 and 21 years old. Like, we were young. Yeah. And because I was churchy, my clothing matched. Yeah. So I would be wearing like beyond knee, ankle length skirts. I was wearing these like long sleeve, ruffled type shirts. Like I was trying to look like the mother of the church.
Yeah.
And I was 21. Why? Just all the whys, girl. Just why? So I realized, girl, it's so hard to look and feel sexy.
And all of that.
Girl, this is difficult. And so after I like started to, so the first part of my campaign was like, oh, you're worth it campaign. And basically what I was telling myself was that I am worth the time and energy it takes to get up in the morning and look and feel presentable.
Yeah.
And whether that was doing my hair, whether that was putting on some earrings, whatever it was, I was worth that time and energy. And then I went through a Love On campaign where I would pick an aspect of like my physical appearance that I didn't like, and love on that. And I would do the opposite too. I would choose a physical appearance that I loved and love on that. Yeah. So at the time, I've always liked the shape of my eyes. So I started wearing eyeshadow. And I was like, I'm going to accentuate my eyes because they're the one part of my body that I'm like, I like my eyes. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do. So I would love on that. And then from there, I went into a Get Sexy campaign. And I basically overhauled my entire wardrobe just to feel more confident, to feel 21 again, or at the time I was 27, but to feel 27, like to feel young, to feel fresh, to not always feel like a mom, to not always feel like I was on my way to church. I remember specifically Kevin wanting to, and this was kind of the catalyst, Kevin wanted to take me out on a date. And I went through my closet looking for something to wear, like, date appropriate, trying to get like sexy, so to speak. And I realized I had church clothes and work clothes.
And that's it.
No in between. And I was like, how am I going to go on a date with my husband in slacks or an ankle length skirt?
Yes, that ain't gonna work.
Both, neither of those are gonna work. Like, this is not what you need in your life. And so that was, again, the catalyst to it. And from there went into the Sex Me Over campaign. And the Sex Me Over was basically me realizing that everything that I was taught and everything that I needed to be a virgin on my wedding day, I needed to get rid of as a married woman. Yeah. And so I look back on it, and now I'm on like this kick of like, not undoing, but actually, I'm going to say undoing and bringing like knowledge and awareness of the harm and this idea of sexual purity. Yeah. Because to be a virgin is pure, then sex is a sin and bad. And that's like, no one says that like as clearly as I spoke it, but that's really the messages that we're consuming. That's really the messaging that we're consuming. And so it was hard for me. I'm like, God, I'm married. I said I do, and I can do this, but it still feels bad. It still feels like a sin. It still feels like I shouldn't be doing this. And so, all of that kind of helped me. I started reading all of these books, and I just started like being more intentional about, feeling and being sexy. Yeah. And part of it is, at this point in my life, I'm on like this education kick almost, that I don't want people to preach sexual purity. And this is kind of like a new revelation for me. I prefer sexual integrity. And I kind of been researching like an opposite to that, or something that's better than sexual purity. And sexual integrity is lining up your sex life with your belief system. And it takes the stigma out of the act. Yeah. So it's no longer that sex is bad. It's that I am making this decision because it aligns with my moral fiber. It aligns with my moral compass.
Yeah.
And so it's no longer about the act. So that therefore, once you get married or you have, we're going to say married because I'm a Christian girl and that's when you should do it according to the Bible. Once you get married, you are now free to have sex. And like, all
you don't have
that,
to like reprogram
you can
yourself.
Celebrate, right?
Yeah.
You can celebrate this moment because again, it's about the choice and it's not about the act.
Yeah.
And I think the idea behind or the messaging that we receive when we're talking about sexual purity is more about the act and not about the choice.
That's so good.
And so that's where I'm kind of at now that like, even like my kids and young people that are like trying to make like, I want to be a virgin. It's a noble act. And what you don't want is for people to make this decision, get married and regret it.
Yeah.
And they live in this shame, literally under the context when God says it's okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that makes no sense.
Right.
And that's what's happening. Like after I share my story, there's so many women that reach out and it goes both ways. So it's also the women who waited, but also women or people who didn't, and now they're married and now they feel bad or have this shame or this guilt associated with not waiting. Instead of, again, just saying, this is a choice that you made. Maybe it didn't line up with your moral fiber or your moral compass, but it's okay to make another choice the next day.
Yeah.
And so we're not there's no stigma associated with the act. And I think that's the trouble. We're putting the stigma on the act itself when literally there are organs in our body that literally God created simply for pleasure.
Right.
Like, and mind you, the woman, so like the clitoris specifically.
Make it plain, yes.
Like it has no other function.
Purpose, that's
but
it.
Pleasure.
Yeah. We got to
like,
work,
come
yes.
on, people.
That's so good.
We have to do, I just believe we have to do better about that.
For sure.
Because you don't want to feel like penalized.
Yeah.
Really for like, I waited and now I'm in this context in which it's okay. And now I feel like, well, I waited and now I'm inexperienced. I waited and now I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I waited and now I have this, this bad energy behind it. Like that's not fair.
Yeah.
And it's so hard again, because I've went through 21 years of receiving these messaging. And then you literally one day say, I do, and you're supposed to go flip mode.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. It takes a long time to undo, again, all of that brainwashing.
Yeah.
And it took some time for me. Like I've read a lot of books. This year, one of my goals this year is to go to therapy, partly to ensure that I don't like regress in my own like progression of this.
Yeah.
But also because Kev just walked in. Hold on.
Okay.
Who's that?
I'm
Are you on the phone?
I'm doing a podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. I didn't know.
It's fine.
It's okay.
But also I know a lot of people look to me and I'm always asked like, what do you do? What do you recommend?
Yeah.
And I want to recommend therapy, but I want to recommend it from firsthand experience.
Okay.
So that's actually one of my goals. I want to visit a couples counselor and I want to visit a sex counselor just so I can, potentially encourage someone else. Because everyone doesn't, like, I don't know why the campaigns work for me. And actually, now that I've done like more like research, I actually do understand. But at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I just felt like these are the things I wanted to do. And this is how, like, it made sense to me structurally to do it this way.
Yeah.
But that may not help everyone, or everyone may not be able to do that.
Right.
So therapy could be an option. So I just want to be able to like speak to that firsthand and share my experience with that.
That's so good. I love that. Well, we could wrap it after this. I just have one more question, and this is like random.
Sure.
I didn't email you this one, but like with the whole R. Kelly thing that's going on right now, you have boys, I have a daughter. So what is your conversation with like your boys in regards to, I don't know, did you have a conversation after that, or what is your dialogue with that?
Oh, so good question. So we actually didn't have a dialogue with them after that. However, I have had a conversation with my boys when the whole Me Too movement was coming up.
Okay.
So last year, actually, we sat down and we had a conversation with my boys are 10 and 12. And at first I was like, are they too young? And so my youngest son plays soccer. And some of the parents on his team, like 3 parents actually, are teachers. And so I was asking their opinion, like, is 10 years old too young? Like, what do you guys think? And they were like, nope, it's not too young. We have curriculum that we speak to this. Like, as a matter of fact, it's going to be coming up soon. You're probably going to get a letter in the mail that you're going to have to sign.
Yeah.
And I was like, perfect. This is a great opportunity. And so I did sit down with my boys and explain to them boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I explained to them that no means no. I explained to them not putting themselves in a position to be compromised.
Yeah.
And that is you being under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or someone that you are with, whether it be a male or a female.
Mm-hmm.
Being under the influence of alcohol can compromise your whole decision making.
Yeah.
With a woman, that may be like sexual, but if you're out with your friends, you could just be doing dumb stuff.
Yeah.
So all of that, we absolutely had one of those conversations. And honestly, I feel like as a woman that is a mother of 2 boys, I have more of a responsibility to teach my boys, because I don't believe don't teach your daughters not to get raped. I believe teach your boys not to rape.
Right, right.
So it is my responsibility to teach my boys that no means no.
Yeah.
And I still say that now. And if they're fighting each other and I hear one of them say no, I will repeat, he said no.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that boundary. Understand that no means no. Understand when someone says this is enough, you've reached the point that I'm uncomfortable with, that means that. It means just that.
Yeah.
I said what I said.
For sure. Yes.
Like, that is absolutely something that I am teaching my boys. I didn't have the conversation with R. Kelly because his stuff was like super, super deep.
Yeah.
But I have most certainly had the conversation, especially since, again, I have boys. One of my sons is an athlete. My other son is super funny and very popular. And I know that as you reach middle school and high school, that's when it's more tempting, especially as a student athlete and especially as someone who's like the funny, cool guy on campus.
Right.
Like, those opportunities are going to present themselves more and more and more. And I need you to be ready today for what's ahead.
For sure. That's so good. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. I feel like you're my friend now. That's official.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Be my friend moving forward. I hope to meet you in person at some point. Are you coming to Houston in July?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to be there.
We will be doing the Love Hour in any summer months. I will be there.
Okay.
So during the school year, I won't be, but during the summer, we'll be traveling both.
Awesome. Oh, we will be in touch. But thank you so much. I love you so much as a woman and a wife and a mom and a now entrepreneur. Like, I really do look to you. So
thank you. You know, I find so much inspiration from women like you and just other women who are doing it. Like, I am a baby. I've been off my job since October 31st officially. So this is all, again, new to me, a transition. And so women that are out there, like, really like doing it, I'm just like, I want to be you. I want to be you.
Well,
so
we are
thank
babies
you for
together,
having me.
but thank you so much. This was a beautiful conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I don't know how to hang this up.
Hey girl, hey. Yeah. Woo, woo.